Mr. Speaker, the minister is talking verifiable nonsense. She knows, or she should know, that our platform clearly committed to significant increases in support for union-based training. The minister should listen better, because yesterday business leaders from Toronto came to committee and ripped into this government. They described how 10 years of bad Liberal policies have created worsening structural unemployment. Canada has the second highest unemployment in the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. Will this minister now admit that failing economic policies at home and broken promises on the world stage are causing an unemployment crisis?
That's right.
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, unlike the member opposite, Canadians actually understand that there are structural changes in the global economy, and they're counting on a government that will put the investments into their lives, into their workforces, into their training, and into their families to ensure that they get through this tough time, Mr. Speaker. That's what Canadians know. They know that they need a government who believes in them, who believes in their capacity, who empowers them to reach their full potential. And that's why, in the last election, they chose a Liberal government.
The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, this minister loves self-congratulations, but I have a simple message for her. It's not working. Canadians aren't working because Liberal policies aren't working. And it's simply in the numbers. We have the second highest unemployment rate in the G7. Wow. We effectively lost over 100,000 jobs in the last month. Youth employment is at its worst level in 25 years. EI claims among working-age women jumped by 12%, just jumped by 12%. Regardless of their intentions, the facts show that Liberal policies are not working. So when will they change course?
Great question.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we're not going to accept lectures from that side of the House when the record is actually crystal clear. And under the last Conservative government, Canada lost hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs under that Conservative government. Not on our watch, Mr. Speaker. That is why we are building major projects that are going to create tens of thousands of good-paying union jobs right across the country. We are building affordable homes at a scale that we're not going to see. We're creating good union jobs, investing in skills training. Canadians chose a government that's going to move forward on these proposals. That's what we're going to do.
Large American online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all its forms. And they're being used by criminals to harm our children. My government will act. And today we're...
What about, like, all those years you were hiding away in those other countries, being a coward, not facing Canadians? How about that?
Announcing our plan to fight crime, to protect Canadians, and to build communities that are safe, secure, and strong. A plan to make Canada secure, to make Canada strong.
私は外国人との穏やかな、お互いに思いやりを持って生きられる付き合い方はどうすればできるんか、一遍ゼロベースで考えるつもりです。毎年毎年、私たちと文化や何もかもがあんまりにも違う人たちをまとめて入れていくということ。この政策は一旦考え直さなあきません。経済的な動機でやってきて難民を主張する人、きちんとお帰りをいただきます。また、不法滞在の人たちにも厳格に法律を守っていただきます。
The context of the decision, the horrific wave of overdoses, see people living with the effects of some of the overdoses in the street, the idea that people would be able to access treatment if they were less consumed with hiding from the police and illicit activities, breaking into cars and so on and so forth. What it became was a permissive structure that, in the effort to reduce stigma, that it was okay to use drugs anywhere.
By the looks of it, we know where we can send the overflow patients now for MRIs and CAT scans and everything else, so keep an extra room for some other patients.
Federal politicians are demanding answers today into how China got the deal to build BC Ferry's new vessels after a leaked report that we first told you about last night showed there was a plan to build the ships locally that governments ignored. For more, let's bring in Rob Shaw at the BC Legislature. Rob, you first outlined this story for us last night based on that leaked report. What has the reaction been today?
Well, Stacey, outrage from the opposition parties, but also the organized labor sector today to learn that Seaspan, the province's largest shipyard, had a proposal to phase in construction of those new BC Ferries. Ships would have generated $1 billion for the economy and 10,000 jobs. It gave the plan to government 2 years ago, and nobody did anything about it. The Conservatives, federally and provincially today, demanding answers both on how the BC government failed to force ferries to put a premium on local jobs and economic benefit in the tendering process, like the report recommended, and why Ottawa is still offering $1 billion taxpayer-backed low-interest loan to do business with China rather than using that to create a maritime shipbuilding sector here. In both cases, critics say the government should have followed the proposal in the report to phase in construction of ships 2 to 4 in BC and full construction for another 4 ships after that.
These vessels can be done in part in another country and finished here, or they could all be done here. So this is where Mark Carney and David Eby need to actually sit down and have a serious discussion about shipbuilding in this country and whether or not they're going to live up to their rhetoric, because we have a whole generation of shipbuilders that could benefit from this and the employment that it would offer in British Columbia or throughout the country. We know that we can do this. We had 2 shipyards, both Davie as well as Seaspan, express interest in this. But when the moment they saw the RFP from BC Ferries, they knew the fix was in.
David Eby and this government looked British Columbians in the eyes and completely lied to them, said there was no way. There was a way. They just needed the political will, and they failed British Columbians at a time where we need jobs.
The BC government, which got this report 2 years ago, ignored it and then expressed disappointment when the contract went to China, today said it is reading the report. Here's Mike Farnworth.
I've heard about this report and I'm reviewing that report. Am I disappointed that there's not more, that they aren't being built here? Of course I am. That's also why we want to work with the federal government and the industry to find ways in which we can get ferries built. But the reality is waiting a phased approach is not what ferry passengers in this province expect or want. They want ferries now. That's what the decision that BC Ferries has made.
The BC Ferry and Marine Workers Union, the BC Building Trades, both out today saying in statements that this proves ferries should and could have built in BC. It was a failure of political leadership to not make that happen. And both saying that BC shipyards never had a chance, though, against low-cost, low human rights records of countries like China. Another twist in the story, this report here had been requested by the House of Commons in their Federal Transportation Committee from BC Ferries, which did not provide it, and the committee now questioning why that was withheld by BC Ferries. Lots continue to happen as a result of this report.
It's not these 567 stocks that are Carney's biggest problem, but there's another much smaller group of stocks and one very particular set of stock options that may represent the largest conflict of interest.
Just on your personal assets, do you have any in Stripe and Brookfield? Do you have any equity stock options or anticipate any future payments from either two of those companies?
So when you're looking at the list of stocks Carney disclosed to Canada's Ethics Commissioner, arguably the most important page is the very first one, because that's where you'll find 8 distinct sets of investments where Carney has a more direct connection. Take Stripe, for example, the payment processor. Carney's a former board member. Watershed Technology, they help companies track their carbon emissions. They were founded by people who used to work at Stripe, and Carney was on a board of advisors there, contributing to their work in a few ways.
How does a banker end up obsessed about climate change? What was your journey here?
Appropriately focused on climate change.
And Brookfield Asset Management, a $1 trillion investment firm. Before entering politics, Carney was the board chair. And part of what he earned during his time at Brookfield was a whole bunch of stock options. So here's the regulatory disclosure showing Carney's stock options in Brookfield. 2 sets of options, more than 400,000 of them in total, giving him the right to buy company stock at about $35 and $40 a share. The profit he could make if he did exactly what we just did in our earlier example, buying low and then immediately selling high, just over $6.8 million US. And actually, that's the expected profit given where the share price was at the end of 2024. Now, we're 6 months later, and the price has actually gone up. So today, you turn those options around, you'd profit more like $8 million US. Either way, you start to see why Carney's critics believe this is a problem.
He has announced he's going to spend billions of dollars on modular homes. Brookfield is invested in modular homes. He says he wants to subsidize heat pumps. Brookfield is invested in heat pumps.
Part of the screen in place is that he should be shielded from making decisions that impact Brookfield-owned companies. Because in impacting Brookfield-owned companies, he impacts Brookfield's bottom line, which then impacts their share value, which impacts his option value, right?
Mr. Rizzo, I want to probe your comments about the link between the cost of living crisis and the unemployment crisis. You were talking earlier about how effectively, as the cost of living has gone through the roof, what constitutes a living wage, that is what your employees need in order to live in a city with incredibly expensive housing, in order to cover basic expenses, becomes a lot higher. So in other jurisdictions, workers that are making less money in a sort of nominal level, but are better off because of a lower cost of living, that becomes a much more competitive jurisdiction to invest in relative to Canada. And I think it's an important point because we've been talking about both of these crises, the cost of living crisis and the unemployment crisis, and you're highlighting the relationship between the two. I wonder if you could share a bit more about how the cost of living crisis impacts business investment, the ability to create more jobs, et cetera.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's just every day. Our annual reviews come every December. We're very committed and loyal to our staff. Most of our employment is probably the tenure of like 25 years on average at our company. We have long-term committed employees, but it breaks, it's really hard for me. Like every year I want to give back to the employees. We want to try to compensate them. And, the conversations are just constantly the same. How expensive it is to live in Toronto, how expensive it is to live in Canada, to a point where good people that have been with me for 10, 15 years have started to identify that, can they move to one of our U.S. facilities, or could they transfer? And the reason they're doing that is they want to start a family, they want to have home ownership. It's just not feasible in Canada for most of the youth. So all these things are really big systemic problems. To put it in perspective, a facility in Georgia where we make components, the average person makes $16.50 to $17 US an hour, and a house price is $40,000 to $50,000, right? So to the employer, they can attract a lot of people, and at this lower wages, those people can still live and acquire and do quite well. But in Canada, when most of your money is going to mortgage debt and living expenses and insurance and all the items I talked about before, the youth of today have no money left over to dream about that next step in their lives.
As a proud Canadian who never lived here, I'm betting the Toronto Blue Jays will spank the New York Yankees in their series. Even if I'm wrong, CBC will just say I'm right. But I'll buy everyone here a Tim Hortons round using your money. Hello, this is a press conference.
Mark, Donald J. Trump here. Your little bet, tremendous energy. Let's make it huge.
Good evening. It was mid-afternoon when the notification from the doorbell camera went off.
What it showed was masked men forcing their way into a home near Mississauga Road in the 403. What it didn't show is a family who say they are now living in fear. CTV's Allison Hurst spoke with the family this afternoon and joins us now live with the latest. Allison.
Zoraida, Peel police say that officers are still canvassing the area, still looking for security footage and trying to piece together where those suspects came from and where they went when they left. A blue SUV pulls into the driveway and a person in plaid with a blue medical mask knocks on the door several times before leaving. Minutes later, what looks like the same car returns and two people get out, one wearing the same shirt but with a hood and a different face covering. They break in the door. Shortly after, a third person joins and the car drives away.
That's when they disconnected the Wi-Fi, so we don't have any recording beyond that.
Rajendra Prasad was at work and rushed home when he saw what was happening on his security camera around 2:50 yesterday afternoon. He entered his home with a neighbor when he was sure no one was inside.
Everything is on the floor everywhere. Every single room, every single washroom, even the drawers and cabinets, even in the washrooms, they are all open. In the rooms, every drawer has been opened and thrown upside down on the floor.
His daughter, Sugand Gupta, was out and his wife had left the house just before the break-in. The only one home was the family dog, Mitzi.
My bed cover was covered. There was blood marks, there was urine, there was very clearly something had happened to her.
Gupta took Mitzi to the vet.
I'm still really afraid for her. We still have to keep a watch if she was drugged, and she's not herself. Yeah. And she's my child, she's everything to me.
Despite being called around 3:15 yesterday afternoon, Peel police did not arrive until just after 8 a.m. this morning.
When I read the call initially, I wasn't very happy with what I read either in terms of the delay that went by.
Peel police say it's uncommon for a call like this to wait so long, but yesterday there were several calls happening at the time, and 2 are still on the go.
It's violating, and no one should have to wait. Unfortunately, in this case, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, there's no one present anymore and the danger has since ceased. So in that case, we can put this call off to the side so we can prioritize things that are happening now.
You see there are marks here.
Visible scratch marks can be seen on the family's front door, and Prasad says he had to secure it overnight so they could sleep. He says,
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South, Hespler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And may I begin by also thanking my learned friend from Haldeman, Norfolk for that terrific speech. She's a very tough act to follow. Mr. Speaker, when I read this bill for the first time, my jaw hit the floor. As I had previously discussed in this House, my motivation for signing up to become a politician was the violation of basic charter rights that the Liberals perpetrated in the last Parliament. And even with that background in mind, I had hoped that they perhaps had been chastened and they would not try so hard to claim onto themselves powers explicitly forbidden by our Constitution in this Parliament. But I was wrong. And before I start talking about this bill today, let me just say, Mr. Speaker, it has been shocking to listen to Liberals claim to defend charter rights when they themselves violated Section 2 and Section 8 of our charter when they imposed the Emergencies Act, and that was determined by Justice Mosley of the Federal Court. All the Liberal members in the last Parliament voted to do that, and I do not want to hear any more about defending charter rights from any such member who has not apologized for that violation. Now on to the present bill. I am concerned, as I say, by the following sections. 15.1 and 15.2 give the Minister the unprecedented, incredible power to kick any private Canadian citizen off the internet, to cut off their phone line, to turn off their cell phone. That is the plain language summary, but I will quote now the bill in its legalese. If there is reasonable grounds to believe that it is necessary to do so to secure the Canadian telecommunication system against any threat, the Minister may prohibit a telecommunication service provider from providing any service to the specified person. Now, perhaps this might make sense to do in an extreme circumstance if a person is trying to cause our satellites to crash or to jam military radar. But this section does not use language about extreme threats of physical damage or threats to national security. It says any threat. And as far as I can tell, given the Liberals' incautious and bombastic use of terms like misinformation, that being any information they don't like, or existential threat, for instance, the member from Milton called the leader of my party an existential threat to our democracy, which is, of course, bananas. So given their incautious and bombastic use of these phrases, it seems to me that the industry minister could deem any speech she doesn't like any threat, and then kick that person off the internet. This section reaches Chinese Communist Party levels of government overreach, and they should be ashamed of themselves. The bill gets worse, it does not get better, Mr. Speaker. 15.2 Clause 5 gives the minister the ability to make her decision to kick someone off the internet. Secret. So imagine that. You've annoyed the Liberal Party overlords, and they've decided to kick you off the internet and cut your phone line. You can't tell anyone that you've been cut off. I have no idea how this could even possibly be enforced. But imagine being put effectively in a digital gulag, unable to use the phone or the internet or your online banking, and if you tell anyone that this happened, you could go to physical jail. I do not doubt that the Liberals will stand and say that I'm being somehow outlandish in my interpretation of this. I am not. It is there in black and white. Let me quote it for them. It seems like they haven't read it. 15.2, Clause 5. An order made under subsection 1 or 2 may include a provision prohibiting the disclosure of its existence or some or all of its content by any person. And if you aren't inclined to believe me, please just Google it. Bill C-8, Canadian Constitution Foundation. There you will find their October 1st, 2025 publication where their expert lawyers corroborate my concerns. Mr. Speaker, I am sorry to say the bill continues to get worse. It does not get better. Section 15.4 says the minister may require any person to provide within any time any information that would help her make a decision under 15.1 or 15.2. So it seems to me that if this legislation passes in its current unamended form, the Minister of Industry could wake up one morning, decide that you or any other private citizen, maybe, possibly, she's not quite sure, could be some sort of threat to our telecommunication system, with no warrant, no trial, no automatic judicial review, she could compel Rogers or TELUS to give her that citizen's address book or their internet search history or their browser history. This is unreasonable and it is shocking. This is the Liberal Party under their new Prime Minister. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. In my first speech to this House, I beseeched the new Prime Minister to discard this darkness and turn towards the light. By reintroducing this Trudeau legislation, he has failed to make the turn. Mr. Speaker, it is not just me raising these concerns. They tried to ram this bill through the last Parliament. Multiple civil society groups wrote an open letter to former Minister Marco Mendocino alerting him to these problems. Signatories to that letter include the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, the Canadian Constitution Foundation, the International Civil Liberties Monitoring Group, la Ligue des droits et libertés, Open Media, the Privacy and Access Council of Canada. Here is a quote from that letter. Bill C-26 grants the government sweeping new powers not only over vast swaths of the Canadian economy, but also to intrude on the private lives of Canadians. Here is another quote. Time and again, we've seen federal governments try to grant themselves the power to intrude on our private lives in the name of security. And time and again, people in Canada have had to come together to push back. They go on to say that the bill lacks guardrails to constrain abuse, permits unknowable orders to trump public regulation, authorizes the use of secret evidence in court, grants powers without accountability, and lacks justification. That is, it doesn't even fix the cybersecurity problems it purports to solve. Do the Liberals believe that creeping authoritarianism worldwide and on this content is a problem, or do they not? And if they do, why have they written a bill with such authoritarian provisions? Why have they failed entirely to take the advice of these civil liberty groups? Mr. Speaker, once again, this bill will go to committee. Once again, Conservatives will be called upon to do the Liberals' homework and repair this deeply, deeply flawed bill. The offending provisions that I have described do not make us any safer, Mr. Speaker. The industry minister turning off a private Canadian citizen's cell phone does nothing to stop hackers in Russia, China, and Iran from wreaking havoc on our telecommunications infrastructure. They can't fix the problem because they don't understand the problem. They don't even understand where the problem is coming from. And in the relatively uncommon situation where the threat is indeed coming from a private Canadian citizen in his mother's basement, why would you cut off his Rogers account? Get a warrant, arrest him, have a trial in open court, and put him in jail. It is the Conservatives who care about and understand cybersecurity, Mr. Speaker. Those with even a passing familiarity of the day's news will recall that Conservatives called to ban Huawei from our 5G networks for 3 years before they on the opposite side deigned to take that threat seriously. We will salvage what is good out of this bill, and we're happy to do that work for the good of Canadians. But this cleanup job should not be necessary. If the Liberals would merely live up to their apparently insincere reverence for our charter rights, we wouldn't even need to have this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
By the way, Minnesota is the same state that gave the lightest sentencing possible to a 42-year-old Somali man who raped a 12-year-old after abducting her out of her backyard. I've been following this story extensively. While I was gone on my hiatus from the show, I was actually in Minnesota I went there for the first time to report on the Somali population. I wanted to understand, how did this enclave of Somalis get here? You have, I believe, 90,000 people over there. Minnesota, Minneapolis is known as the Somali capital of America. How did they come over here? What was the process? What's going on? One of the stories that was happening was this man right here raping a 12-year-old. And the most jarring, that's not even, well, it's jarring, obviously. You don't abduct 12-year-olds out of their backyards and then rape them. Well, this man's local mosque doubled down and wrote a letter of support for him. So I went in front of the mosque and I did a report about this because they stated that it's because of cultural differences that he did this. If in your culture, sexually assaulting a 12-year-old after kidnapping her is the norm, you should not be in the United States of America.
I, on the other hand, have been very defensive of American Jews. Like, I feel like they were bullied, they were harassed, that what's been happening to them on college campuses is a travesty. The ripping down of the hostage posters was absolutely disgusting. Now, I make a distinction there between them and Israel, who I have no obligation to defend. But my fellow Americans who are being subjected to blatant anti-Semitism, yes, every day of the week I've defended them and will continue to. I don't have to defend Israel, and I don't defend Israel. You know, I generally am on Israel's side. I'm certainly not on the side of Hamas, which is a terrorist organization and was absolutely vile and disgusting in that 10/7 attack, and I cried on the air after it happened. But that doesn't mean I don't get to criticize Israel. I think it's gone on too long. And as much as I see that Hamas is great at propaganda, they've been controlling the narrative, the Gaza Ministry of Peace, whatever they put out, those numbers are all lies, and a lot of these photos are lies, and they put out the sickest child that they've made sick. I know what Hamas does, trust me, and I've been covering it. But that doesn't mean that the devastation and destruction can go on forever. And Israel's now taken out Hezbollah. It's decimated Hamas. It had a war with Iran that we almost got dragged into, in more full flower. It's time to wrap it up in this American's view. I am entitled to that opinion, and I will not be shamed out of it by being called an anti-Semite. Now, as for my decision to platform Tucker, too bad, too fucking bad. I love him. We're friends. I don't think he's an anti-Semite at all. Don't listen to all of Tucker's shows. I don't listen to all your shows. I don't have that many hours in the
Broadcasting 17 hours a day.
Yeah, seriously. So, I raise my kids.
Our shows are very anti-Semitic sometimes. I don't know. Well, we have weak moments.
Yeah, that's you too.
But I don't really care. I think Tucker's a very important, valuable voice in the national conversation. I'm thrilled.
Do you think he has a platform? I think Candace is apart from Tucker.
I don't know her. I don't really know her that well. Although I will tell you, we recently had a very nice exchange before all this. And I was just reminded in my own head that Candace is a young mom of 3 young kids. She's under a lot of pressure. She's got a big show. She's been under attack since she came onto the public airwaves, and she's been under attack constantly. And it's my prerogative if I say to myself, that is not someone I wish to attack. I do not feel that way. I don't want to do it. Yeah. And I felt this way. And now that people have made my attacking her the stakes of my relationship with whatever person is saying this, I'm going to have to say goodbye to that person. I won't do it. I think now it's like a point of pride. Yeah. It's literally the same thing as the BLM folks trying to make you raise your fist. The answer is no.
Just last night, we saw an extremely troubling incident where conservative journalist Nick Sorter was captured on video being taken into custody by the Portland police after he was ambushed by Antifa and was defending himself from these assaults. But instead of arresting these violent mob members night after night after night who are ravaging this community, the police arrested a journalist who was there trying to document the chaos, and everyone in this room should be extremely concerned about that. The Department of Justice spoke with that journalist this morning, and they will be launching a full investigation into his arrest. This incident is part of a troubling trend in Portland where left-wing mobs believe they get to decide who can visit and live in their city. It is not their city. It is the American people's city, and President Trump is going to restore that. I just spoke with the president about this, and he has directed his team here at the White House to begin reviewing aid that can potentially be cut in Portland. We will not fund states that allow anarchy. There will also be an additional surge of federal resources to Portland immediately, including enhanced CBP and ICE resources. Law and order will prevail, and President Trump will make sure of it. With that, I'll take...
Hello, Gurpreet.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਗੁੱਡ ਮਾਰਨਿੰਗ ਜੀ। ਦੇਖੋ ਜੀ, ਸਮਾਲ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ 'ਚ ਨਾ ਬੜਾ ਘਾਟੇ 'ਚ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਕੱਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਪੀਜ਼ਾ ਸਟੋਰ ਆ, ਉਹਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਲੈਂਗਰੀ ਸਰ। ਉਹ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਵਿਚਾਰੇ ਨੇ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟ ਰੱਖੇ ਨੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬੜਾ ਤਰਸ ਆਉਂਦਾ, $4 ਤੇ ਰੱਖੇ ਨੇ। ਪਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ 39 LMIਆਂ ਵੇਚਣੀਆਂ ਪਈਆਂ, ਫੇਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ। 30-40 ਹਜ਼ਾਰ ਡਾਲਰ ਤੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੱਧ ਵਿਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹੀ LMI, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਦੇਖ ਲਓ 39 LMIਆਂ ਵੇਚੀਆਂ ਉਹਨੇ, ਫੇਰ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਸਟੇਨ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ। ਹੁਣ ਦੇਖੋ ਜੀ, ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮੰਨਣਾ ਪਊ, ਇਹ ਜੰਗਲ ਰਾਜ ਆ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਲੀਹ ਤੇ ਆ ਸਕਦਾ। ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ ਗੋਲੀਆਂ ਗਾਲੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਚੱਲਣਗੀਆਂ, ਰੋਬਿਨ ਹੁੱਡ ਵੀ ਖੜੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ। ਇਹ ਗੰਦ ਪੈ ਗਿਆ, ਹੁਣ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਨੇਪਿਆ ਦੀ। ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੋਨੇ ਦੀ ਚਿੜੀ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਚਾਂਦੀ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ ਪਿੱਤਲ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਰਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ।
Don't touch people. Come on. Keep your hands to yourself. Keep your hands. They're so... Why do you always go to violence and keying Teslas and throwing Molotov cocktails? Why do you always have to get violent? Peaceful protest. Peaceful protests. Peaceful protests. Peaceful protests. Peaceful...
Look at the machine he has. It's hysterical.
So, what should people be concerned about with what you found? If someone's had COVID vaccines, what would be their concern?
I would keep an eye on if any of your family members come down with an unexplained cancer, get a pathologist involved to get a slide or a sample so that the people who are studying this can begin to look for whether there's vaccine sequence in there. So we have a person who had 4 Pfizer vaccines, and then a year after that came down with a colon cancer, and there were 3 biopsies taken, 2 before death and 1 after. The person died of this diagnosis within 30 days. Those samples were then, we used a tool called PCR to look for the Pfizer's vaccine sequence, and then resorted to a process known as voluminous sequencing to sequence the tissue to see if there's any Pfizer sequence in there, and there is. And shockingly, there's a lot of it, and that was not expected. The only way that happens is if it got into the cells and amplified and started replicating.
Does it imply that it caused the cancer, or just the fact that it was present in the cancer is concerning because it's in the body?
Yes, it's a good question. We can't nail causality from the data we have, but it is certainly a concern when you see a sequence like that. So there are mechanisms where this could be playing a role in cancer. So the reason we'd like to get this message out is that I think too many of these tumor biopsies are getting thrown away and the evidence is disappearing. And it's important for folks going through that process to try to retain the biopsies if they can, so that we can go back and see if this is in fact the case.
The member opposite tries to say, you have government, the Liberal Party. We're going to take away your internet. We're going to take away your cell phones. We're going to deny you the opportunity to do your banking. And they come up with this whole conspiracy wearing not necessarily wearing a tin hat, but this conspiracy theory, how big government's going to take everything away when the legislation is all about protecting Canadians, protecting the economy. Does the member see any merit in having cybersecurity legislation that would ensure that the interests of Canadians is being served, such as our economy, economic transitions that take place every day by the thousands? Does he not see the merit for protecting that?
The honourable member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, I wish this was a conspiracy. I wish the Liberals had the shame to keep this secret. It's open, it's in the bill. Multiple civil society groups have written letters to them asking them to change this, sounding the alarm. And when he says he thinks that I think it's a conspiracy that they might freeze bank accounts, they already did that, and the federal court told them that was a violation of charter rights, and they have no response to that. I'm asking them, apologize. If you're stand up, you have a lot to say. Now would be a terrific time to apologize for violating our charter rights in the last parliament. I'm serious. I don't know why you're laughing. Excuse me, Mr. Speaker.
Hi.
Hello. So I've been made aware that you started something called a tri-campus group.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't tell you what to do with your creating your own clubs. However, want to make this completely certain. You have no affiliation with the Conservative Party of Canada. You have no affiliation with the ratified campus clubs of the Conservative Party of Canada, and I'm going to give you some advice. This is not helpful for us. If your goal is to further the Conservative Party cause, we politely request that you cease operations. And if personally you do want to get involved in the party, I do have to tell you, as someone, so I'm the national councillor from Ontario, I'm responsible for campus clubs on national council. This is not a helpful thing that you're doing. So I wanted to make that aware. I can't talk about repercussions. I can't talk about any of that. You are fully within your right to do anything. However, after speaking to the campus club presidents, they wanted me to relay a message from the Conservative Party of Canada to you to please cease interaction with them, cease trying to be affiliated with them, and yeah, so.
Okay.
Thank you for volunteering for us, but when it comes to this, we have a very, very clear capacity, and we have a very, very clear chain of commands, and you are outside those chains of commands trying to ratify with the campus clubs. And again, I can tell you this as someone who used to run the youth wing and the PCs and has done all this. The road that you are going down, involvement in politics, unfortunately is not a very good one. So, take that as you will, and I hope you have a nice day.
Okay, thank you.
Bye for now.
Be okay, she's dying alone. She's dying alone.
We got the footage, guys. It's gross.
She's dying alone. We would have never done that. Our birds don't die alone. They're loved by us. They're cared. She's alone, laying there, dying right there. We can't touch her. We can't be with her. They're not with her. They know she's dying. Because we did those finishes, she's dying alone. This is the most painful thing, but they're right there. They're right there. We're not aggressive. We're not hurting anybody. We just want to give her love. They've been loved for 35.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've got the real Conservative A-team this afternoon. Repeated Conservative conspiracy theories over and over in the House. If we want to talk about real hate crimes, and I'm not quoting, alt-right so-called alternative news, talking about Jewish members in my community who are covering their Jewish identity in public. That is the hate that we're talking about that this bill seeks to address. So I'm trying to understand what is the member's opposite real objection to this legislation. And when they talk about freedom of expression, it seems more and more likely that what they're talking about is freedom for their members to say whatever they want without consequences. Is that the real objection? Thank you.
The honourable member for Elgin St. Thomas, London South.
Mr. Speaker, I wish the member had spent less time working on what he thought was a zinger and more time listening to my speech, where I detailed in excruciatingly, and I will argue painful detail, real hate that is occurring against Christians, against the Jewish community. I mentioned the firebombing of synagogues, the shooting of Jewish schools. And by the way, the member should be well aware that the Jewish community has looked at this Liberal government and been absolutely ashamed to be represented by people that have cozied up with the very people who are responsible for Jew hatred in this country. So I do not take any cues from this member who wants to accuse Conservatives standing up for freedom of being conspiracy theorists. He should be ashamed of that.
The Liberals seek to redefine the term hatred in the criminal code, making it potentially a lot easier to convict and charge with a hate speech offense. I'm Conservative Member of Parliament Roman Baber. We're now beginning to study Bill C9, which is Liberal anti-hate legislation. And the Supreme Court of Canada for the last 35 years defined the word hatred as connotes, so implies an emotion of an intense and extreme nature that's clearly associated with vilification and detestation. However, Bill C9, which purports to codify the definition proposed by the Supreme Court or used by the Supreme Court, proposed the definition as follows: the emotion that involves detestation or vilification and that is stronger than disdain and dislike. So one is an extreme emotion of an intense nature, and the other one just involves detestation and vilification. So clearly the new threshold used by the Liberals for hate speech is much lower. And I'm very concerned that this is going to create a chill on free speech, that folks are going to be afraid to communicate because they might not know if they may pass a much lower line and potentially find themselves in legal jeopardy.
Again, like, there's a lot of things to point out in the videos that we're showing, but this point should be illustrated. They're cracking down on the things that you can think, like, they don't have to have hatred behind them. The person that the Karen or the Josh just has to feel that. It's not good. Like,
Conservatives are going to work very hard at committee to make sure that when the Attorney General presents before us at the Justice Committee, I'm going to question him very seriously and insist that we go back to the Supreme Court definition of hatred and not the new liberal diluted definition of hatred. I'm Roman Baber. Talk again. Thanks.
Okay. Out.
We will do it.
The Honourable Member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Mr. Speaker, as I'm speaking, there's a ceremony going on in Owen Sound paying tribute to Corporal Robert Thomas James Mitchell, who made the supreme sacrifice in Afghanistan 19 years ago today. Over 100,000 Canadians have made the supreme sacrifice in service to Canada. On Remembrance Day in my hometown of Tara, 200 names will be read out. Many ridings have dozens of cenotaphs that request wreaths for Remembrance Day. The Liberals are now telling MPs that FAC will only pay for 2. Veterans Affairs uses the tag Canada Remembers on social media. So why now is the Liberal government choosing to forget our veterans?
Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for his question and I thank him for his service. I remain committed to ensuring that all those who have served and continue to serve are honoured meaningfully and respectfully. Proposed changes for the Wreaths for Parliamentarian programme was made with the understanding that MPs would work directly with the Royal Canadian Legion, with proceeds supporting their local branches. On learning that the changes could significantly disruptive to the Remembrance Day, I've instructed my department to revert to the previous format for this year. This Veterans Week, I encourage all Canadians to support their local legions and support the work our veterans have done for this country.
Whoa! Karima!
Get that fucking shit out of my face.
Get
that out of my face. Get that out of my face. Get that out of my face.
Karima, grab your scooter, let's go.
You can't talk to me. You guys are violent. Get out of my way.
Who's violent?
He's violent. This person's violent.
Antifa.
Get on the scooter. Let's
What
go.
is Antifa? Get on the scooter, let's go.
Boss, boy.
Yeah, we're
Get
being
on the
assaulted.
scooter.
We're gonna go
Boy.
because we're being assaulted right now.
Listen
Thank
to
you.
your boss.
You guys couldn't answer fast enough. What is Antifa? What
I'm
is
trying to
Antifa?
answer. You're saying you don't
What is
understand
Antifa?
words. I can't help you.
What is Antifa?
I can't help
So
you.
why are you coming here? Is poor people Antifa? Is poor people Antifa? Whoa. Did I hurt you the first time? Did I hurt you the first time? Please, Did I hurt you the first time? No, you're not. Please stop. Don't run into me. Don't trip, bro. Where are you going? I can run. Please stop.
Come here. You got your red letter.
That's come up.
You got your head through?
Justin Trudeau is a fighter. Fighters get knocked out.
He can try to call himself Rocky Balboa and play fight songs to aggrandize himself as the star. But the people lined up at food banks, 2 million of them every month, know better.
Justin Trudeau is a fighter. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
I was put on this planet to do this. I fight and I win. It's what I'm good at. No, Mr. Vanette, kidding.
You fight from the good place.
I never fought anybody who was all in their prime. I was always some angle to hold on to the title longer than I should have had it. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying here?
I understand, but you've got to understand that he loved you and that was his job, protecting you.
Look, that protecting don't help nothing. It only makes things worse. You wake up after a few years thinking you're a winner, but you're not.
He's gonna get rocked right here, walks right into it. Justin Trudeau is a fighter. Fighters get knocked out. Again, Trudeau says he's a fighter. Who walks into a jab like that and gets knocked down? A bad fighter. Says he's good at it though. He was put on the planet to do this. He's a fighter. Let's take a peek at all of the jabs that have knocked Trudeau down in just about a TKO by now. The ref is gonna step in. Trudeau, you gotta go. You're not good at this. Watch.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
Idiot sandwich what?
An idiot sandwich, Chuck Ramsey.
Do you know how long you've held up people picking up bags? I've been waiting in line down the road for 30 minutes while you've been here soaking up the race.
Thank you.
You know?
Excuse me.
You're not getting my vote. This is a free country.
It
It's a free country, and I'm trying to speak to him, and he won't even acknowledge me.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm sorry for your challenge.
It's not my challenge. I'm a volunteer trying to help someone save their home.
Sir, we've been filling sandbags as well.
Yeah.
Okay?
And you know, while you're here, nobody can pick up.
I am here
while
to
you're
encourage-
here, no one can pick
I
up
don't know
sand.
that, sir. I'm sorry.
Well, why don't you make yourself aware?
We are going to.
You know, I was with a guy who was a staunch conservative, and he said if you'd actually do work, he'd change his vote and vote for you.
Sorry, sir, calm
That's
down.
sincerity.
I just spent half an hour. Can you listen to me, sir, now that I've listened to you?
Yeah, I'll listen.
Okay. I'm glad to be here with my kids. We just filled sandbags for 15 minutes,
But you
which
help
isn't
people
enough.
up.
Sorry.
All
sir,
your RCMP and
sir,
security
sir,
help people
sir,
up from
sir,
getting their
I can
stuff.
understand your frustration around security. I live frustrations with security every day of my life right now. That's something that unfortunately is a reality of my life. But I'm happy to be here.
They're about to open these
speak.
dams.
I'm happy to be here to speak with you, to listen to you, to speak with all and to encourage more Canadians to come out and volunteer. More people are coming and volunteer because
I volunteered, but I was in a truck for an hour waiting while you were here with a photo op.
I have
the most
frustrations with
insincere
security
thing
as
I've
well.
ever seen.
I'm sorry, sir. That's unfriendly and unneighborly today. We're here
It's
to help.
unfriendly.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you,
be
sir.
neighborly.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm a little confused. There is one of two things, Mr. Prime Minister. You are either a liar or you're confused. And I'm beginning to think it's both.
I have said repeatedly in many situations, okay, you can, if you're going to ask me a question, you might want to hear the answer. I have repeatedly said that, yes, the responsibility of any Canadian Prime Minister is to get our resources to market. And yes, that includes our oil sands, fossil fuels. We need to get those to market. I've also said that we need to do that in a responsible, sustainable way. That you cannot separate what's good for the environment and what's good for the economy.
My question is, what veterans were you talking about? Was it the ones that fought for the freedoms and values that you so proudly boast about, or was it the ones who fought against? Because honestly, Mr. Prime Minister, I was prepared to be injured in the line of duty when I joined the military. Nobody forced me to join the military. My name is Brock Blaschuk. I'm a retired corporal with the Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry out here in Edmonton, 1st Battalion. I served in the Canadian Armed Forces for 7 years, I deployed in Afghanistan back in 2009 until April 3rd, where I was obviously severely wounded by a roadside bomb or improvised explosive. As you can see, I've lost my left leg. I have 58% soft tissue loss and 88% nerve damage on my right leg. I was prepared to be killed in action. What I wasn't prepared for, Mr. Prime Minister, is Canada turning its back on me. So which veteran was it that you were talking about?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your passion and your strength and being here today to share this justifiable frustration and anger with me and with all of us here.
What are you? An idiot sandwich. Idiot sandwich what? An idiot sandwich, Chef Ramsay.
On Monday, his once most trusted lieutenant called it quits. Sources say Trudeau told Chrystia Freeland on Friday she would be replaced as finance minister by former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney. But another source said at that time he hadn't agreed to the job. Freeland herself isn't hiding. After issuing her stunning resignation letter, she went to a caucus meeting, spoke with premiers, and greeted a long line of people at that same party as Trudeau.
You want Chrystia Freeland to run for leader? Yes.
If Trudeau steps down, potential successors include Freeland, along with Ministers Melanie Joly, Anita Anand, Francois-Philippe Champagne, Dominic LeBlanc, and Carney.
They're all whores.
Is a fighter.
More delicious even than dinner, I'm sure. Watching the bimbo Trudeau trying to now make up for his undiplomatic diplomacy. As for being governor of Canada, all I say is, Justin Trudeau has been such a hideous prime minister of Canada. I wouldn't trust him to be governor of anything. Other than going back to drama teaching, I really pity his students even on that. I don't know what Trudeau is good for. He's a narcissistic little playboy who has been vastly over-promoted above his competency. And the only person who doesn't seem to realize it is him. But the Canadian public have a great opportunity quite soon to wave farewell or to steal the line to turn the page in Canada.
I was put on this planet to do this. This is I fight and I win. It's what I'm good at. No, Mr. Vanette.
You fight from the good place.
Elbows up! Elbows up!
These are some nice stuff you have here.
Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, if a body of a woman kills, that Liberal legislation is threatening regarding bail.
Based on extensive consultations with the provinces and territories. It's based on extensive discussions with law enforcement. It is based on evidence. It is not based on cut and paste American bail laws. It's a bail law that works. We are tough on crime and firm on the rights of Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
To see the Prime Minister rant and rave and point his finger at police after they have been crying out for this government to scrap Liberal bail for years. We have Constable Greg Pershella, who was killed by a man released yet again on bail. We have a woman killed by her husband after he was arrested and released 30 times because of liberal laws. We have 1,600 crimes every single day in this country because of the liberal laws. Will he stop screaming, hollering, and jabbing his finger and scrap liberal bail?
It seemed like money laundering to me, but do you remember when Alan Reyes brought forth this scandal about the amount of money that was being spent on the Governor General's dry cleaning? We tried to break that story. Nobody touched it. CTV, CBC, Global, nobody touched it. We tried to break that story. So at first, this happened. Just watching it live, right here. This is all that happened. We were watching it live and caught us by surprise. Here it is. Wound up. Today he seems to be
Mr. Speaker,
pretty easy
after
going.
the Governor General's lavish
an
spending
independent.
on international travel, we've learned her office spent over $117,000 on dry cleaning since 2018, an average of $1,800 per month.
Did you hear what he just
I
said?
did some calculations based on the going rate for these services.
$1,800 a month
rates she's been spending
since 2018
that's
on
an average
dry cleaning.
Of 3 outfits a day, 365
That's gonna
days
be an
a
issue.
year. Why doesn't the government cut her $33 million budget? What are they waiting for? Because she's clearly incapable of managing taxpayers' money seriously and responsibly.
That's embarrassing. That's going to be a thing. That's interesting. Good. Hey, we're getting late on time.
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, the Governor General
What is she going to say to
done
that?
important work for Canada.
$33 million
Obviously,
worth of important
we
work?
expect every dollar she spends to be done in a rigorous and conscientious way. Thank you.
That was quick.
Well, this brings to the end of question period.
What?
I understand there's going to be a number of...
But then that story just went away. Nobody followed it up. Whatever. It's weird that nobody would follow up a scandal like that. We put out this piece trying to draw some attention, and we also criticized Alan Reyes for not following up his own story. But we've got more on that to come after this.
Mr. Speaker, every time
This
we
is
ask
Alan
questions
Reyes.
about
He
the
dropped
Governor
a scandal
General's
bomb 2
indecent
weeks ago. It was
spending,
wild.
The government gets a little offended. They pay lip service, but nothing is done to change the culture of this institution. The Governor General spends thousands on meals, alcoholic beverages, luxury hotels, trips, cleaning services, just to name a few. Imagine on a single plane trip, she even spent nearly $1,000 on slices of lime and lemon. You couldn't make this up. So I repeat my question to the government. Does the government intend to cut its $33 million budget because clearly it doesn't seem to be able to manage taxpayers' money seriously and responsibly?
It's pretty great.
The Honourable Minister.
That's an interesting
The
story.
Governor General does important work for Canada here and throughout the world. And of course, we expect all public office holders to spend every dollar with respect, with rigour, and in a conscientious way, respecting all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Last time he shut down the House with his
Unfortunately,
it happened again.
concludes and brings us to the end of our question period.
This is so wild, guys. That's 2 times in a row
That we have
that
a few
Alan
points
Reyes
of order.
dropped the bomb,
The member for Regina Capel has the floor.
and they shut it down right afterwards. It's just really funny. I'm going to have to do some investigating. We've got some more things to do this evening, I guess. So that's fun. So guys, I'm just one person. I do feel like there is some journalist in me, but mostly we're here for entertainment. But that is a real story that's being ignored by CBC, CTV, Global, wherever you think you get your news from. Subscribe to my channel. It'll give you the real news. I think, I'm only interested in letting you know the information. I don't think that my prerogatives are the same as CBC's priorities. That's all I'm saying. Like and subscribe. We're having fun here with Canadian politics. It's supposed to be fun, and it is fun. That's it. We're out for now. Catch you next video.
Under the Liberal government, the dream of homeownership has been pushed out of reach, with homeownership now costing 55% of Canadians' pre-tax income. Wow. Meanwhile, these Liberals are at secret cash-for-access fundraisers with developers, bankers, and lobbyists. But their conversations have not been reported to the lobbying commissioner. So before these insider deals drive prices even higher, will they tell us which members and which ministers attended?
As you know, Mr. Speaker, Canada has some of the toughest ethics and fundraising guidelines in the entire world. The Liberal Party of Canada has in the past surpassed those guidelines, and the Liberal Party of Canada will always apply the rules and make sure that we follow the rules. We hope that the Conservatives can say the same.
Well, don't take my word for it. Reported in the Globe and Mail. Let's see what the commissioner has to say. Quote, the commissioner has complained in the past that some lobbyists and their clients use caucus and cabinet retreats as an opportunity to mingle with politicians without declaring the conversations to her office. Now, this is happening at the same time that this Liberal Prime Minister has made sure that their fundraising events are now, as a rule, closed to the media, closed to any scrutiny from the public. We're talking about the Prime Minister. We're talking about ministers. We want to know who is in the meeting so we can find out who's going to get rich.
For the first time in 12 years, the House of Commons Ethics Committee is reviewing the Federal Conflict of Interest Act, and a watchdog group is calling on the Prime Minister.
Okay, the reason we're showing this one right now is because it's all falling apart for the Liberals. It would seem like the media here is revealing the story.
Minister to reenact the PM Code of Ethics for ministers and their staff. Duff Conacher is the co-founder of Democracy Watch, a nonprofit and nonpartisan citizen advocacy group. And Duff is actually testifying before the Ethics Committee on this Wednesday. Duff, good to speak with you.
Good to talk with you as well. Thanks.
First, maybe give us an idea of why you feel it's important the Prime Minister's Code of Ethics is reenacted.
Well, there's a law called the Conflict of Interest Act, but then there's also a code. And a lot of the key rules are in the code, and they really should be in the law. But what happened was when Prime Minister Harper made it into a law about 20 years ago, he put these rules into a code and essentially said, oh, I'll enforce that. But the Ethics Commissioner considers that the code is required to be followed by cabinet ministers and other top government officials and cabinet staff. And what is happening right now is Prime Minister Carney became the new Liberal Prime Minister, and the code he has up on his website is from 2015 and signed by Justin Trudeau.
Hello, Canada. Big news. I've resigned from cabinet because, well, I totally rocked it as finance minister, right? Turned that $1.2 trillion debt into $12 trillion. Wait, no, $1.2 quadrillion. Numbers are tricky. Anyway, Prime Minister Mark Carney, smart guy, loves Ukraine, gave me this perfect new gig, head of disappearing money. Hello.
All right, Donald, let's talk Canadian government grift. Makes my blood boil. These corrupt Liberal politicians, Trudeau's old crew, did nothing for Canada, ran it into the ground, and now they're getting plush diplomatic posts on taxpayer dimes. Bill Blair, David Lametti, Jonathan Wilkinson, Chrystia Freeland, all scoring sweetheart gigs. What's the scam here?
Joe, it's a huge ripoff. Canada's a disaster worse than the G7. Everybody knows it. Blair, defense flop, now High Commissioner to the UK. Lametti, justice dud, ditches Carney's team for UN ambassador. Wilkinson, energy loser, mulling an EU post in Brussels. Freeland, the worst, bails cabinet for special representative in Ukraine. Probably funneling Canadian cash to her cronies. Pure grift. Taxpayers pay for these do-nothing jobs. Nobody knows what they even do. Canadians should be furious. Nobody knows what they even do. Canadians should be furious.
So our election and our policy was first and foremost, it was fight the tariffs, have a reaction. We had one of the strongest reactions. Protect our workers. So there were many ways we were doing that, but one of the things is we were taking all of the tariff revenue, putting it back into workers, helping workers retain their jobs, but also retrain, protect.
As long as they are going to take this posture of aggression and punishment, and they're running a lawless fascist regime, we are not going to be happy with the United States. And we're sure as shit not going to get lectured by the U.S. ambassador that he's disappointed in us like a fucking parent. Get out of here. Like, it's ridiculous. Canada, by the way, is getting huge respect around the world for the fact of our elbows up. So no matter what the ambassador says, the rest of the world respects the hell out of us.
But I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Many of you maybe have been to the grocery store, because I think most of you have to eat, And you've probably noticed that food is astronomically high. Basics, like one dad wrote to me, goes, my kid loves strawberries, can't afford strawberries anymore. Beef, all the basics are just so expensive. The Conservatives, which is the official opposition, whose job it is to hold the government to account, the government being the Liberals, was questioning them on grocery prices. Forward a motion to get rid of all the taxes that are driving up the cost of groceries. Watch this exchange.
When will this Liberal government stop emptying the wallets of Canadians to cover for their failures?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Studies show that school food programs improve student health and mental health. They also improve learning outcomes, better grades in science, math, and reading. Mr. Speaker, those healthy meals in schools can also save a family up to $200 a month.
Adam, you're so cute. So here's the real question. Why in the world would Canadians even need a national school food program? Once you recognize why, because remember, the Liberals don't have any money, the government doesn't have any money, it has your money. So they're spending money, which means they owe money, okay? So just to put it into perspective, it's like putting it on your credit card. So actually, just for context, the Liberal government right now is paying more on the interest that they owe than we are on healthcare transfers. How's your healthcare? They don't have any income to pay for these programs. You know how they pay for them? They tax you harder. So they create all these hopes and dreams social programs that sound amazing, because who doesn't want to support a breakfast program for kids, right? What are you, a heathen? Of course you want to support kids. But how are you paying for it? Oh, wait, all of those billions of dollars that Japan and Germany came to us for LNG, or the business that just went to the States for $8.5 billion, yeah, we don't make that money. Because the money we need to actually pay for these programs is in the ground. It's called oil and gas and energy. What we have tons of, but the Liberals won't pass legislation to actually develop them. They create the problem, then they give you a half-assed solution. It's kind of like you chop off your arm, they chopped it off, and they hand you a Band-Aid. We have a national school food program. Aren't we great? No. No, you're not. Always ask why. Why do you keep spreading misinformation about puberty blockers? You're not telling the truth. You're saying that they sterilize children. That's not what puberty blockers do.
Well, I encourage you to look up what puberty is. Puberty is the process a child goes through to become sexually mature so they can have babies. Puberty blockers, by very definition, stops that process. Someone cannot have children if they don't become sexually mature. And so we are allowing for a process where kids, when they're old enough to understand the implications of the decisions that they're making, they'll be able to make that choice. And that is about age 16, so that it doesn't interfere with their ability to have kids. So.
Okay? Oh, I couldn't give a shit. Fucking deliver you. You said me 17, again said me 19. Why you tell me lie? You first of all know 20. Come on,
factored in a lot of things. What was incredible, though, I think, and this is where the opposition had a field day, it's the language this parliamentary budget officer is using. Yeah. And so testifying before a committee, here's a couple of the adjectives the PBO is using about the spending. Quote, very alarming. Quote, stupefying, shocking, unsustainable. And when the PBO's using language like that, it's a field day for the Conservatives. Now, the problem, I think, politically for the Conservatives, and of course they're absolutely right to use the PBO's words, is that every poll we've seen, internal government polling that we have through access to information requests, and the public polling done by our people like our polling partner Ipsos, Canadians are not that concerned about the deficit. They're concerned.
This is Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. 3 nations spread across 3 different continents. But despite the distance, one alarming truth connects them all. They are collapsing in exactly the same way. And now, the symptoms are impossible to ignore. Let's begin where the cracks are turning into a full-blown collapse. Canada. In Canada today, the average family can't afford a home in their own country. Home ownership has crashed 31% in a single generation. Compounding this issue, foreign buyers now hold a significant stake in the Canadian property market, owning up to 13% of it, more than at any point in history. But Canada isn't alone. In Britain, the foundation of the middle class has been gutted. Manufacturing jobs gone, down 46% since 1990. And what did families get in return? The highest tax burden since World War II. All while public services fell apart. But this isn't just a British problem. Across the world, Australia is living the same nightmare, only deeper. There, a quiet takeover is underway. Foreign corporations now control 80% of the country's critical resources. And the dream of home ownership? Dead on arrival. Housing prices have soared by 500%, while wages crawled just 80%. Young Australians are being priced out of their future in their own country. And this pattern across continents, across governments, is no accident. This isn't just failure. It's not bad luck. It's called managed decline, and it's happening by design. And if you're watching this thinking it can't happen here, you need to pay attention, because these three nations are the test cases for what's already occurring throughout the Western world. What you're about to learn in this video will completely change how you understand what's happening to these once powerful nations, and why everyone should be deeply concerned about what comes next. The evidence is hiding in plain sight. Government documents, insider testimonies, and statistical patterns reveal a blueprint that's been quietly unfolding for decades. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Most people have no idea that the collapse of these three nations follows a familiar historical pattern. Every empire throughout history has fallen in a similar way, from the inside out. Take ancient Rome. Most think it fell to barbarian invasions, but Rome's real decline began internally, through economic inequality that mirror what's happening across Canada, the UK, and Australia right now. By the 2nd century AD, as Rome's expansion slowed, the wealthy elite created massive estates worked by imported labor. This destroyed local Roman farmers, the backbone of the Republic, who were crushed by debt and displacement. Sound familiar? It should. It's the exact same pattern unfolding today. When Roman reformers tried addressing these inequalities, they were eliminated. The elites chose to get rid of reformers rather than give up their power. A key point to remember as we look at what's happening in these modern nations. Just as Rome faced demographic collapse in its final years, these three nations are experiencing unprecedented population shifts. Despite Canada importing over 480,000 migrants in 2024 alone, its fertility rate has plummeted to just 1.48 children per woman, far below the replacement level. The UK's fertility rate has crashed to 1.44, while Australia's sits at 1.5. These countries aren't growing naturally, they're being artificially repopulated while their middle classes vanish, exactly as Rome's did before its fall. Managed decline might sound like boring corporate jargon, but it represents one of the most dangerous concepts in modern governance. Originally a business term for companies beyond saving, it evolved into a strategy where maintaining appearances takes priority over actual solutions. This isn't conspiracy theory, it's documented policy. The concept emerged during the 1980s in Britain when Margaret Thatcher's government advised that struggling industrial cities should be left to manage decline, controlling the collapse rather than preventing it. But what's truly shocking? This localized strategy has now been scaled up to the national level across Canada, the UK, and Australia, and the evidence isn't hidden. It's being announced openly. Don't believe it? Just look at the official messaging coming out of these governments. Their infamous "you'll own nothing and be happy" rhetoric wasn't just a meme, it's becoming the reality for millions. In Australia, government reports warn of a generation of forever renters as home ownership slips out of reach for younger Australians. In Canada, nearly a third of people under 40 now say they expect to rent for life, according to recent surveys. And in the UK, a 2025 policy paper declared that the era of mass homeownership is over, signaling a long-term shift away from traditional property ownership. If this is your first time hearing about managed decline, prepare for a rude awakening, because once you understand how it works, you'll start seeing it everywhere. And nowhere is it more obvious than what's happening to Canada right now. Canada presents itself as a progressive, independent nation. The reality? It's being transformed back into a resource colony before our very eyes. Here's the playbook being implemented with frightening precision. First, domestic production gets strangled. Since 2009, business investment per worker in Canada has fallen by 20%, according to Statistics Canada, part of a broader trend tied to weaker market competition. Meanwhile, productivity has stagnated. Canada also recorded only 1.1% growth in real GDP per capita between 2014 and 2024, making it the second worst performer among 38 high-income countries. Second, the market gets flooded with new consumers. Canada now has the highest population growth in the G7, with 98% coming from immigration. This creates artificial GDP growth on paper while masking collapsing living standards. Meanwhile, the housing market has detached completely from economic reality. The average Toronto home now costs 11 times the median household income, more than double what financial experts consider remotely sustainable. Young Canadians aren't just unable to buy homes, they're spending up to 60% of their income on rent alone. The numbers are staggering. In March 2025, the average home price in Toronto hit $1.4 million, while Vancouver topped $1.7 million. Meanwhile, the median annual income in these cities hovers around $100,000. The math simply doesn't work anymore. And who's buying these properties? Foreign investors purchased tens of thousands of Canadian homes in recent years, with many left empty as pure investment vehicles. In fact, things got so bad that the federal government extended its foreign buyer ban to 2027. Statistics Canada data shows that non-residents owned about 7% of condos in British Columbia and 5.6% in Ontario. Clear evidence that investment demand has distorted housing supply. But wait, you might be thinking, isn't this just normal economic evolution? Think again. Most Canadians never even noticed when, back in 2015, former Prime Minister Stephen Harper publicly dismissed the middle-class prosperity platform as outdated. At the time, it sounded like political posturing. But in hindsight, it reads more like a warning, because what followed was a slow, calculated dismantling of the economic foundations that once upheld middle-class life in Canada. But here's the truly mind-blowing part. Canadian policymakers aren't failing to solve these problems. They're just ignoring the inevitable. When asked what happens if Canada's housing bubble finally bursts, analysts warned that it could trigger a financial crisis with ripple effects far beyond real estate. As Jacobin notes, Canada's housing market has become a tinderbox propped up by speculation, lax regulation, and blind faith in endless appreciation. If the bubble pops, it won't be a surprise. It'll be a disaster foretold. That's right, the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. If you think Canada's managed decline is shocking, just wait until you see what they've done to Britain. It's the same blueprint, just a more advanced stage. And what you're about to discover will make you question everything you thought you knew about modern economics. The United Kingdom, once the workshop of the world and birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, is now experiencing the fastest deindustrialization of any developed nation.
Do you really believe that if the Liberal government is returned, there is going to be any real change in the attitudes of those who have been stalking power here in Ottawa for 20 or 25 years? Remember that the Liberals made 4 promises, 4 solemn undertakings to Canadians in 1980. They came before you and they said 4 things and then put them in the throne speech. First, 18 cents a gallon is too much, and it went up to over $1.50. Secondly, we're going to reduce unemployment. When they made that promise, there were 800,000 Canadians unemployed. There are now 1.5 million. Then they said we're going to reduce the growth in government expenditures. It's gone up from 60 billion to 100 billion. And then they said, we give you a formal undertaking that we are going to reduce the deficit in an orderly manner. The deficit's gone from 10 billion to $36 billion a year. It took Canada 100 years, from 1867 to 1967, to accumulate a net debt of $18 billion. And from 1968, with Mr. Turner there and his colleagues, from 1968 to today, 15 years, our net debt has gone from $18 billion to $180 billion. That's not the fault of the Americans, as Mr. Turner suggests. That's not the fault of our friends and allies. That's the fault of the people who have been running this country, who who have been initiating deficit financing, who have been spending more than they could take in, who have been crippling the private sector. There's a new day coming for Canada, and that day brings new hope and new prosperity. The Conservatives, we have never contended we're perfect. We need your help. We need your advice and your counsel, and we will always honor your trust. Our commitment is to Canada, and our commitment is to you.
Just wanting to get your thoughts on Mark Carney and your relationship with him while you were Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and any advice you have to Canadians who think he might make a good Prime Minister.
Well, Mark Carney was Governor of the Bank of England, and under his tenure, too much money was printed, which did damage to the British economy and put our economy off track. He, at the last election, endorsed Rachel Reeves' economic policy. She's now become Chancellor. It's been a disaster for Britain. The country is heading for bankruptcy. So I would strongly recommend not backing Mark Carney or his policies on net zero, which have been disastrous for Britain, would be disastrous for Canada.
Do you trust his judgment overall, outside of ideological considerations?
Well, I believe that he made major mistakes in the management of the Bank of England. He has pushed net zero, which has been a disaster, not just for the UK, but for many countries across the world.
Thanks for your time, Prime Minister. I appreciate it.
On to Mr. McKenzie, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. During, I believe it was the spring election campaign that recently occurred.
All right, so we're going to go through this. I've got a bunch of clips to watch. I'm going to watch them in the background. Hang out with me. I'll be on the keyboard. Probably not on video too much. I just need to record this, and I need to watch it to see what actually went down. A couple of committees that I missed. My name is Aaron. I cover Canadian federal politics, and it's exhausting. And it's draining, not just exhausting. I spend a lot of time doing it, so that makes you tired. But it drains you. These assholes are sucking the life into the future of the country, and most people don't watch, and the other half don't care. Until it gets so bad that they can't back it up. I know there's a lot of things that I should be trying to do on this channel, like live interfaces and stuff. I've tried all of those things. I've kind of hit a balance here I believe, in the way I'm trying to grow and what I'm actually still trying to do, which isn't really what I'm doing. I've got I don't have my claws into Canadian politics. They've got their claws into me. I'd rather look away than be the bearer of bad news all the time. But Canadians are being duped by their corrupt conspiracy federal government, and they're doing it in blind sight, right there in front of you. If you pay attention, that's the worst thing you can ever imagine that a government would do in Canada is being done to Canadians by Mark Carney and his corrupt cabinet of conspiracy. It's disgusting. When I started watching, I was Trudeau, Poilievre, who knows? I only knew who Chrystia Freeland was outside of that. But now I know where they all live. I know so many details about each one of these people. And more than half of them are still trying to dupe Canadians. And by mistake, I started doing this channel about Canadian federal politics, because it was something that I didn't think that I would care about. But then after a week, I was well, you've got to tell the truth to the rest of the country. And I am not trying to dupe anybody. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm a voter who would rather not have to pay attention to what the government is doing. I found myself in a place a couple of years ago, not to make a YouTube channel, but just to explain it to myself. How do you have to follow Canadian federal politics to make your own budget make sense? But I had to, and I traced it back, and it didn't take long. Like, they waste a lot of money here in our provincial government, big time. It's an expensive municipality all of a sudden. And whatever, that's fine. But the federal government takes the prick share, the cock of the walk share. Like, and they waste everything. What is better now as far as federal anything goes than it was 5 years ago? Including like LGBTQ plus and other communities. Like the Indigenous must feel it's gone downhill as well. Like, everything is promises and just lies. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up right there. I'm Aaron, Canadian Looney. Thank you all so much for watching. That's it. Saturday night, right? Let's do something else. Go find something else to watch. Canadian politics. It's a fool's game. Goodness gracious. Did they get us already? Because I think it's not looking good around the world. Like, things down under in Australia, New Zealand are bad. France, the UK, Ireland, like, it's bad in a lot of places. Germany's a train wreck. Like,